There are few animals on Earth that inspire the kind of fear, fascination, and admiration commanded by the orca. We call them killer whales. But they are not whales. They are dolphins, the largest members of the dolphin family. They live in every ocean on the planet, from the frozen waters of Antarctica to the tropical seas of the equator. And wherever they go, they occupy one of the most powerful positions in the marine food web. They hunt fish. They hunt rays. They hunt sharks. Some populations specialize in seals and sea lions. Others have been observed attacking dolphins and even other whales. But the most extraordinary thing about the orca isn't its size. It isn't its teeth. And it isn't even its ability to kill prey many times its own size. It is how it thinks. Orcas hunt as families. They communicate using learned vocalizations. They teach their young how to hunt. Different populations have different diets, traditions, and hunting techniques. In other words, orcas have culture, and that makes their story unlike almost any other predator on Earth. Because humans didn't simply discover the orca. We feared it, we hunted it, we captured it, we trained it, we turned it into entertainment. And eventually, we began asking whether an animal this intelligent should ever have been kept in captivity in the first place. This is the story of the orca, the predator, the family member, the performer, and perhaps one of the most misunderstood animals in the ocean. Scientifically, the orca is known as Orcinus orca. It belongs to the order Cetacea, the same broad group that includes whales, dolphins, and porpoises. But taxonomically, the orca sits inside the family Delphinidae. The dolphin family. That makes the killer whale the world's largest dolphin. The name killer whale may sound like a modern description of its behavior. But the name has a much older history. Ancient sailors reportedly encountered groups of these animals hunting large whales and referred to them as whale killers. Over time, the phrase was reversed, and killer whale became the name we know today. Yet the label doesn't tell the whole story. Because there isn't simply one kind of orca, scientists have identified different populations and ecotypes, groups that can differ in their appearance, vocalizations, habitat, social organization, and preferred prey. In the North Pacific, for example, scientists commonly distinguish between resident, transient, and offshore killer whales. Resident orcas are famous for hunting fish, particularly salmon. Transient, now often called Big's killer whales, specialize more heavily in marine mammals. And offshore populations have their own ecological characteristics. They can share the same ocean, but live very different lives. Their behavior isn't simply instinct. Much of it is learned, and that distinction will become extremely important later in our story. The family that never really leaves. Imagine growing up in a society where your mother is not just your parent, but your teacher, your navigator, your hunting instructor, your social connection, and sometimes, your grandmother is the leader. This is the world of many wild orcas. Orcas are extraordinarily social animals. Many live in stable family groups known as pods, often centered around maternal relationships. In some populations, individuals can remain closely associated with their mothers for decades. Noah fisheries and their society isn't silent. Underwater, sound is everything. Clicks help with echolocation. Whistles and pulsed calls help individuals communicate. In the Pacific Northwest, different family groups possess distinctive vocal traditions that are learned and passed from one generation to the next. Think of it as a family dialect, a cultural signature. A pod doesn't simply teach its young what to eat. It can teach them how to eat. One population may herd fish into dense formations. Another may deliberately create waves to wash seals from ice. Another may pursue sharks. The same species, different cultures. This is why scientists increasingly view killer whales through the lens of culture, behavior transmitted socially rather than inherited genetically. And if an orca can learn a hunting tradition, then losing members of that family doesn't just mean losing individual animals. It can mean losing knowledge. Built for the ocean physically, the orca is almost impossible to mistake. Black above, white below, a distinctive white eye patch, a pale saddle patch behind the dorsal fin, and in adult males, a dorsal fin that can rise dramatically above the surface. Some males can reach around 32 feet in length and weigh as much as 11 tons. But their greatest weapon isn't their body. It is their coordination. An orca can accelerate, turn, dive, communicate, and cooperate with members of its pod. That cooperation transforms a group of powerful predators into something much more formidable. A hunting team. Orcas have been observed coordinating attacks using tactics that can resemble those of highly organized terrestrial predators. Except their hunting ground isn't the savanna. It's three-dimensional. The entire ocean becomes their hunting arena. Above them, below them, and sometimes beneath the ice. The orca life cycle. An orca begins life with an extraordinary dependency on its mother. Females generally become sexually mature at around 10 to 13 years of age. Pregnancy lasts approximately 15 to 18 months and normally produces a single calf. The calf nurses for at least a year, but the relationship lasts far longer. For young orcas, childhood isn't simply about survival. It's education. Learning how to communicate. Learning where to travel. Learning what prey is available. And most importantly, learning the traditions of the family. Female orcas can live for decades. NOAA reports that females can reach at least 90 years, while males generally have shorter lifespans, although some can live considerably longer than the average. And there is another remarkable feature of their life history. Like humans, female orcas experience menopause. That means older females can survive long after they stop reproducing. So why would evolution favor a female that no longer produces offspring? One answer may be knowledge. An experienced grandmother knows where food can be found. She knows migration routes. She knows the dangers. She knows the ocean. In a changing environment, experience can be a survival advantage. The orca population globally, scientists estimate there are roughly 50,000 killer whales, although population estimates vary and many populations remain poorly understood. But that number can be misleading, because the question isn't simply how many orcas are there. The more important question is, which orcas are we talking about? Some populations remain relatively robust. Others are struggling. One of the most closely monitored populations is the southern resident killer whale population of the Pacific Northwest. These orcas are organized into three major family groups known as J, K, and L pods. They were heavily affected by live capture during the 1960s and 1970s. The population reached a high of roughly 97 animals in the mid-1990s before declining again. NOAA July 2025 census counted only 74 individuals. Their problems are not caused by a single threat. They include declining prey availability, chemical contaminants, fishing interactions, and underwater noise from vessels. For an animal that depends heavily on sound, a noisy ocean isn't just inconvenient. It can interfere with the way an orca hunts, communicates, and navigates. And this brings us to the first major conflict in the story. Because long before humans understood any of this, we were already changing the orca's world. Conflict when humans first met the orca for coastal communities. Encounters with orcas are far older than modern marine biology. Across the world's oceans, indigenous peoples developed their own relationships, stories, and interpretations of killer whales. To some cultures, they were powerful beings. To others, competitors. And to fishermen, sometimes they were simply trouble. Because orcas don't recognize the boundaries humans draw around the ocean. A fishing ground is still a hunting ground. A net full of fish is still food. And the presence of humans does not necessarily make an orca abandon a meal. As industrial fishing expanded, conflicts increased. In some places, killer whales were viewed as competitors for fish. In others, they were deliberately killed or culled. Noah notes that historical threats included commercial hunting and culling intended to protect fisheries. But the relationship was about to become even more complicated. Humans discovered that the world's most powerful dolphin could be worth money. If it was alive. From ocean predator to attraction, the modern captive orca industry began in the 1960s. Suddenly, a wild killer whale wasn't simply an animal in the ocean. It was a potential attraction. Marine parks wanted them. Audiences wanted to see them. And capture crews went looking for them. One of the darkest chapters occurred in the waters of the Pacific Northwest. Wild orcas were herded into enclosed areas. Young animals were separated from their families. Some were selected for transport. Others were released. And some died. The southern resident population was particularly affected. Noah reports that the population was reduced during the 1960s and 1970s because of captures from marine parks. The famous Penn Cove capture of 1970 became a symbol of the era. The operation captured several young orcas. Among them was a young female who would later become known around the world as Lolita or Tokiti. But the Pacific Northwest would eventually become too difficult for continued capture. Regulations changed. Public attitudes changed. And the industry looked elsewhere. The captivity machine, one of the next major sources of captive orcas, was Iceland. During the late 1970s, young killer whales were captured from Icelandic waters and transported to marine parks around the world. Historical records compiled by PBS describe multiple capture operations during this period, including the transfer of Icelandic orcas to European and American facilities. The business model was simple. Take an animal capable of traveling enormous distances through the ocean, and place it in a tank, feed it, train it, and turn its natural power into a show. To audiences, the result could look magical. A giant animal leaps from the water. A trainer rides across its back. Music plays. Crowds cheer. The orca appears to cooperate willingly. But what happens when the show ends? That question would eventually transform the entire debate. Because captivity isn't simply about whether an animal can survive. The question is whether its physical, social, and psychological needs can be met. And for an animal built to live in a complex social world, that question is enormous. The hunter in the wild, the orca isn't performing. It's hunting, and its menu is remarkably diverse. But here is the important distinction: not every orca eats everything. Different populations can specialize in different prey. Resident killer whales may focus heavily on fish. Big's killer whales specialize in marine mammals. Elsewhere in the world, orcas have been documented hunting rays, sharks, seals, sea lions, dolphins, and other prey. This specialization creates dramatically different hunting styles. Fish-eating orcas may work together to herd prey. Marine mammal hunters may use stealth because sound can alert their prey. And some orcas have developed extraordinary techniques. In Antarctic waters, killer whales have been documented producing waves that can wash seals from ice. In other parts of the world, orcas have been filmed attacking large sharks. Recent scientific research from Mexico's Gulf of California has documented repeated interactions between individual orcas and large shark species. This is more than a collection of spectacular attacks. It tells us something about the ecosystem. The orca sits near the top. There are few animals above it in the marine food web. And when an apex predator changes its behavior, the consequences can move down the food chain. The other side of the predator, but if you only watch orcas hunting, you miss half the story. Because these animals also play. Young orcas chase one another. They brace. They interact with objects. They swim together. They touch. They vocalize. And they spend enormous amounts of time in social interaction. Their relationships aren't simply functional. They aren't together only because there is feed nearby. Family matters. Social bonds matter. And this is where the image of the killer begins to break down. The same animal capable of dismantling a shark can spend hours swimming beside its calf. The same predator that can overpower prey can be gentle with members of its own family. The ocean doesn't contain heroes and villains. It contains animals adapted to survive. The orca simply happens to be exceptionally good at it. Tilikum, Blackfish, and the captivity controversy. Then came an orca who would change the public conversation. His name was Tilikum. Captured off Iceland in 1983, when he was approximately 2 years old, Tilikum spent the majority of his life in captivity. His story became central to the 2013 documentary Blackfish. The film examined Tilikum's life and the circumstances surrounding the death of SeaWorld trainer Dawn Brancheau in 2010. And suddenly, millions of people began looking at captive orcas differently. The question wasn't, can an orca perform tricks? The question became, what does an orca lose when it is removed from the ocean? Tilikum became a symbol. For critics of captivity, he represented the psychological and physical consequences of confining an intelligent, social predator. Organizations such as PETA argued that captive environments prevent orcas from engaging in fundamental behaviors such as traveling long distances, hunting, and maintaining natural family relationships. The Whale and Dolphin Conservation Organization reports that dozens of wild orcas have historically been captured for captivity, and that, as of March 2026, at least 52 orcas remained in captivity worldwide. But there is another side to this story. Marine parks have argued that captive breeding, research and education can contribute to public understanding of marine life. And the industry has changed dramatically over the decades. In the United States, live capture of killer whales for aquarium display is no longer taking place. But the global debate over captivity remains. Resolution, the orca we created, perhaps the strangest part of the orca story, is what humans have done to its image. We first saw the orca as a monster, then as a competitor, then as a trophy, then as an attraction, then as a character. Hollywood helped transform the animal. Films such as Free Willy turned the captive killer whale into an emotional symbol of freedom. Wildlife documentaries turned the orca into one of the most recognizable predators on Earth. And Blackfish transformed another captive orca into a symbol of the ethical debate surrounding marine parks. But there is a danger in this transformation. We can become so emotionally attached to the image of the orca that we forget the animal itself. Humanizing the orca, we often describe orcas using human language. We call them loving mothers, protective families, playful teenagers, wise grandmothers, cruel killers, heroes, victims. But science demands something more complicated. An orca doesn't need to be human-like to deserve protection. It doesn't need to experience the ocean the way we do. It doesn't need human emotions. It simply needs to be understood as what it actually is. A highly social marine mammal. An apex predator. A culturally complex animal. and a species whose survival is connected to the health of the ecosystems around it. That distinction matters because when we humanize an animal too much, we can misunderstand it. But when we treat it as nothing more than a machine driven by instinct, we can misunderstand it just as badly. The truth lies somewhere between the two. The future of the orca will not be decided by one dramatic battle. It will be decided by something much less cinematic: food, noise, pollution, fishing, habitat, and our willingness to leave enough space for wild animals to remain wild. For the endangered southern residents, conservation means more than simply counting whales. It means protecting their prey, reducing disturbance, managing contaminants, and understanding the social and cultural structure of the population. Because when a family disappears, something more than an individual may be lost. A voice can disappear, a hunting technique, a memory, a route through the ocean, a tradition. This is why the conservation of orcas is ultimately the conservation of knowledge. The final question: for centuries, humans have tried to define the orca: monster, killer, competitor, performer, celebrity, victim. But none of those words can fully contain this animal. The orca doesn't need our mythology. It doesn't need our movies. It doesn't need our applause. It needs an ocean. An ocean with enough prey to hunt, enough space to travel, enough quiet to communicate, and enough family members to pass its knowledge to the next generation. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson the orca can teach us. The most powerful predator in the ocean isn't necessarily the one with the biggest teeth. It may be the one that knows how to cooperate, how to learn, and how to pass that knowledge on. For the orca, survival has always been a family affair. And as long as these black and white giants continue to cut through the world's oceans, their story will remain one of the most extraordinary chapters in the history of wildlife. The killer whale, the world's largest dolphin, the ocean's apex predator, and an animal that has spent millions of years mastering a world we are only beginning to understand.